Hello and welcome back to this lecture where we are going through a series of snippets to see how group policy management works. In the previous video, we deployed a desktop background to a specific OU, and this time around we're going to deploy a software to that specific OU. Now, the software we are going to be deploying to that OU, which is a sales and marketing OU, is a Zoom application. So we want it to be the case that Zoom is installed on the computer that these staff would be using. So these computers are computers that are assigned to this users in that OU. Now, for you to be able to install or deploy software, there's a couple of things that you need to make sure that you have. You need to have a network share, just like we did the desktop. And then you need to have the executable of that software. So the installation file, the package. Now, it doesn't need to be in a .exe format. It needs to be in an MSI format because that's the only one that Microsoft authenticates and allows. So if it's Zoom, it means you need to have the Zoom MSI installer. If it is whatever piece of software, it needs to be the MSI installer version. You can easily get those MSI installer versions online in the third party or in the software vendor website. So I had downloaded the Zoom MSI software, and then we're going to put it in the network share, and then we'll create a group policy for that. Another thing we need to double check is when you want to deploy software, it's best practice to deploy the software to a computer. So that would mean that the computer that you're targeting needs to be in a specific OU, because computers, for instance, if you're in Active Directory now, we have these computers. You have this staff PC01 in computers. It is a container, and we learned in our lessons that you can't really apply group policies to containers. So you'd have to create a separate OU and then move the computer object into it so that you can apply the group policy to it. So for instance, we're still dealing with our sales and marketing department. So I had gone ahead and created a new OU, organizational unit, within this OU, and I called it sales and marketing computers. So that will be the OU that will be applying policy to. So let's start with creating a network share. So I'll go to files like normal. I'll go to this PC, and then I'll go to create a new folder, and I'll call it company software. And I'll get rid of the gaps. And in company software, we need to set the permissions to be correct. So I'll go to properties, go to sharing, advanced sharing, and I'll share this folder, and I'll make sure it has read functionality, and click OK, OK, OK. So that's it set up now, and then we have a network path. I just need to copy this because we'll be using it to create, we'll be using it for the group policy. So that's done, and now we need to copy over the software into this share. So I'm gonna just pin this to quick access here. So when I go back to this PC, I have this path which links to my host machine, and I have Zoom installer. So this is the MSI Windows installer version, not .exe. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'll paste it in this folder. So when I go in here, we have the software. So we have created the share, the network share, we've copied the path, and I'm just going to double check this again to make sure. I'm going to sharing, copy this. Okay, so now we are certain that we have our software and it is saved in where we want it to be. I'm just going to close this, and then we'll go back to our group policy. So this is Active Directory. We have our computer. We have our computer OU here, but then we need to move this computer into this staff, this sales and marketing computer. So this would mean that this is a real computer that is assigned to a known staff or whoever belongs into this OU. So I'm just going to move this computer into this OU. Click yes. So now we have a computer in this OU, and we can go ahead and create our policy. So just like our previous lesson, we're going to create a new, and then we'll call it, say, Zoom software deploy domain policy, something like that. Click OK, and then we would right click on this and we would go to edit. Now in this editor where we are setting up the policy for the software deploy, we would go and do this under computer configuration. We'll go to policies, and in policies we'll go to software settings. Now we need to set the path that we want the software installation to go and pick the package from. So you'd right click on software installation and go to properties, and then it's asking you where is the default packet location. So I'm just going to paste that location in there, and then I would apply. I'll leave everything as default, and I'll click OK. So that's set up now, and now we can go and add our new package. We'll right click on software installation, click new, and go to package. Now if you didn't do it correctly, it wouldn't take you to this path. We had to set the path to be that default path that I pasted there and applied, so that when we want to add a package, it would bring us here so we can select the software automatically. So I am going to go ahead and select Zoom Installer and click open. And we have two options here where you're being asked, do you want the deployment method to be assigned or custom, which is advanced? Normally you'd go for assigned when you're in computer configuration, so that it would automatically install whenever the machine boots up. If it was going to be set up at a user level configuration, then you have the option to be published. But for the purpose of this training, we're just going to stick to computer configuration. And we'll leave it as assigned. We'll click OK. And then this is all set up. And then I'll close this. And then we need to link this to this computer OU. So we'll right click this and we'll link to an existing OU. I will click the software deployment, click OK. So now we have this linking to that. So what we will do now is we can close this, and then we will test this as well. So we'll open up our Windows 11 workstation, and you can see that we don't have Zoom installed on this. If you go here and you go to Zoom, it's not in there. Go to control panel. Yeah, control panel. It's not here. And what we do is we go to CMD, and we would force it. So GP update, force, update in policy, and we are being asked that there's some installation that we're not able to be applied because it can only be done during startup. Do we want to start it up? Yes. Click enter and close, and I'll just restart it manually. So we'll give it a few seconds to load up. So I'm just restarting this machine now. And what we want to do is just observe what happens in the back end. So the virtual machine is just going to boot up in a few seconds. So the machine is starting up now. And success would be that the installation should be done in the back end, and we should see Zoom. Normally when it's taking this long, it means it's running the packages in the back end, which is normal. So we're going to log in as Tracy. And we have Zoom application here. So now that we have Zoom application installed, you might be wondering, how do you uninstall a software using group policy? It's basically the same way we had installed the software. So to uninstall a software using group policy, you go back to your group policy management. So we'll go back to the linked GPO to this OU, which is the Zoom software deploy. I'll right click on it and I'll go to edit. And then we would go and find that specific setting, which is the software installation. So in the software installation, this is the package that was assigned. So you go to the package and you right click on it, and you have all tasks and you have remove. So when you click on remove, it gives you the option to say immediately uninstall the software from users and computers. So if we click OK and we do a GPU update, we go back to the machine, we do a GPU update, and then we reboot or we log off or whatever, Zoom would disappear. So it's just basically the same process when you're installing and reinstalling software. So I'll see you in the next video where we would be exploring how to set up a logon script for a user account so that whenever they log in, they're automatically mapped to a network share. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.